to the spring, fetch me some water. You'd be my legs, my young granddaughter. You know I don't get around the way I used to. Won't you do for me the things I cannot do? Pin up my hair, there's company coming. We'd better get some biscuits in the oven. You know I'll fry this meat when I'm through. You set the table and I'll sing a song for you. Chief Redbird fell in the muddy water, and that's the last they heard of him. I lived my life by the banks of the river, but I never did learn to swim. Will the wild geese fly and the coal trains rattle, and the time keeps passing on by? Me and the Redbird River gonna roll on till we die. These apples here are good for frying. We'll peel the rest and put 'em up for drying. You know I can't stand to see 'em lay and spoil. Our winter's gain will be our summer's toil. Chief Redbird fell in the muddy water, and that's the last they heard of him. I lived my life by the banks of the river, but I never did learn to swim. Where the wild geese fly and the coal trains rattle, and the time keeps passing on by. But me and the Redbird River are gonna roll on till we die. I used to fly across these hills and run barefoot through the spring. Thought I could see the whole world, Lord, and how I'd shout and sing. But my running days are over and my soul is
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome back this evening to the Great Hall here at Hyman Settlement School for our Wednesday evening readings. I had to think about that. It is Wednesday. It feels like the week is just flying by, doesn't it? Flying by and being maybe slow at the same time. It's kind of an interesting feeling. But I hope you all are having a wonderful time in your classes and the afternoon sessions and participant readings. I've not heard of anything going tragically wrong, so that's wonderful so far. So we're excited to have everyone here. Everyone have a good dinner? Good dinner? Great. I would be, with soup beans, I wish that David Joy were reading tonight, because if so, we would have had a better introduction to be had this evening, should Mr. Joy have been with us tonight. But we do have three wonderful faculty members reading this evening. Annette, Angela, and Marianne will be joining us shortly, but just a few quick announcements to work through. One is we are one day without dropping the live stream, and so I think that was in large part to us turning off our Wi-Fi if we don't absolutely need it for the next hour or so. So if you can do that, we would appreciate it. That would be great. Tomorrow I've been asked about, we are going to do the group photo, as I mentioned. We'll do that at 6:45 tomorrow in front of the cabin. So we'll ring the bell as a reminder. But if you hear a random bell at 6:45, let that be, hope this moment comes back to you, that's time for the group photo. I'm going to mosey on down to in front of Uncle Saul's cabin. That's where we traditionally do that at. So 6:45 tomorrow. We'll try to remind again, but there's just not another time where we'll all be sitting together in this space to do that announcement. So 6:45 tomorrow for that. We would just like to let you all know that at 7 p.m. tomorrow, it's not affiliated with us, or it's not on our official agenda, but they are, the one-year anniversary of the flood is tomorrow and the next day, depending on how you look at it. And they're going to be unveiling a memorial downtown for the 22 individuals who lost their lives in Knott County. And that's at 7 p.m. tomorrow at City Hall. I realize that it doesn't really work well into our plans, but if that's something that you would like to be a part of, we have been told it will last around 20 minutes. I can take no ownership of whether that's true, because Melissa told me that and someone told her that. So, but that's what we believe is happening tomorrow at 7. So if you wanted to pop in, by all means, the community is welcome to do that. But we are proceeding at 7:30 with the evening program tomorrow, but feel free to make that decision how you like. Shelley, you have an announcement to make?
One brief announcement. A wonderful way to stay connected with your fellow Hyman Riders throughout the years on Facebook. There is a Hyman Riders Facebook group, and there are 2 questions that you have to ask, or answer, to join the group. So please, if you want to be a part of that group, it's not affiliated officially with the school. That was started by Pamela, I think, years ago. But just be sure you answer the questions, or we won't let you in, because we have weirdo stalker people that try to join as well. Please answer the questions. Join the group. Stay in touch.
Thank you. So you could find that online if that's something that you want to do. We thank them for managing that. It's not, like I said, it's not affiliated officially with the settlement school, but we do try to share things in there as we can. I think, we had, the journals are passing around that Melissa has. I hope everyone is starting to see those. So write in those if you'd like and pass them along, so that way everyone has an opportunity to share in those journals. And with that, I don't think I have any other announcements unless I forgot something, and if I did, we'll mention it later. But I would like to invite Ms. Jane Moore Waldrop up to the stage.
Hey, everybody. Let me see. How about that? Does that work? Okay. I'm Jane Waldrop, and it's my pleasure to introduce one of our readers, our first reader tonight. Annette Saunooke Clapsaddle is an enrolled citizen of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians and resides in Kuala, North Carolina, with her husband, Evan, and sons, Ross and Charlie. She holds degrees from Yale University and the College of William and Mary. In 2018, she attended her first Appalachian Writers Workshop here at the Hyman Settlement School. And since then, her work has launched with national acclaim. In 2020, her debut novel, Even As We Breathe, was published by Fireside Industries, an imprint of University Press of Kentucky, in a collaborative partnership with the Hyman Settlement School. The publication of this book was a groundbreaking event, not just for Annette publishing her first novel, but in the literary world. Even As We Breathe is the first published novel written by an enrolled member of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. And that's... The book was a finalist for the Weatherford Award, was named one of NPR's best books of 2020, and in 2021 received the Thomas Wolfe Memorial Literary Award. The book has garnered the highest praise. Charles Frazier, who some of you may recognize as the New York Times bestselling author of Coal Mountain, had this to say about the book. Even As We Breathe is a fresh, welcome, and much-needed addition to the fiction of the Appalachian South and its neglected people and places. Clapsaddle creates characters with sensitivity, subtlety, humor, and warmth. A splendid debut by a writer well worth following. From Silas House, New York Times bestselling author of Clay's Quilt, Southernmost, and Lark Ascending. Even As We Breathe is a remarkable and important debut novel that announces a major new voice in Southern literature, and one that we have waited far too long to have and to hear. Clapsaddle offers characters we will never forget, a palpable sense of place, and an intricate plot. But most of all, she allows us to luxuriate in her rich language, which is evident from the first sentence to the last. From Elizabeth Blair of National Public Radio, this is a novel of intimacy and poignancy, but also an exploration of how war and racism affect people's daily lives. Her first novel manuscript, Going to Water, won the Morning Star Award for Creative Writing from the Native American Literature Symposium, and was a finalist for the Penn Bellwether Prize for Socially Engaged Fiction in 2014. Clapsaddle's work has appeared in Yes Magazine, Lit Hub, Smoky Mountain Living Magazine, and The Atlantic. She's the former executive director of the Cherokee Preservation Foundation and co-editor of the Journal of Cherokee Studies. She serves on the board of directors for the Museum of the Cherokee Indian and is president of the board of trustees for the North America Writers Network. In 2023, in partnership with the Museum of the Cherokee Indian, Clapsaddle launched Confluence, an Indigenous Writers Workshop series that seeks to bring Indigenous writers to the Qualla boundary in Cherokee, North Carolina, to work with aspiring writers several times throughout the year. She's also become a frequent teacher here at Heinemann, including the Appalachian Writers Workshop, the Makery, and the writing retreats offered spring and fall. Even As We Breathe is a fine example of the work of Fireside Industries. For some of you, especially those of you who are here for your first Writers' Workshop, you know that Heinemann has a long, rich literary heritage, and Fireside is a natural outgrowth of that history. Fireside published its first book in 2019, so it's a recent enterprise. It strives to publish creative work by authors with unique perspectives, diverse backgrounds, and compelling voices who are telling the complex stories of Appalachia and rural America. Fireside looks for books that are driven by language and characters that can inform, entertain, challenge, and illuminate places and people who are often underrepresented in literature. You can learn more about Fireside, its books, and its submission policies at Heinemann.org and KentuckyPress.com. And now, please welcome Annette Saunooke Clapsaddle.
All right. I have brand new material that I have never read anywhere. Nor has anyone ever read. So, you know, why not just read it in front of the finest writers in Appalachia? So this is from my novel in progress, currently titled Enough for a Name. That may change. And the background that I need to give you, because I'm kind of pulling from the middle, is that every chapter has an epigraph from a traditional Cherokee story. And it progresses from stories that anthropologists recorded to stories actually told in Cherokee voices of contemporary storytellers. And so the values derived from those stories are thematic throughout the book. My protagonist's name is Maisie, and she has recently inherited tribal land that she has to either cultivate or she will lose within a year. And there's some politics that go into that. I don't know if you guys know anything about land, but sometimes politics is involved in it in the southern Appalachian region. So she's dealing with that. And there is a character named Talon who is a young man who has come into her world, is about to shake things up. So I'm going to actually start with a short chapter that is introducing us in some ways to this character of Talon. And it begins with this epigraph from Mary Chiltosky. Once upon a time, there were just mostly sea creatures on the earth. All the sea creatures we know about and more. But the water creatures knew about one rock, and on that rock was a man. The sea creatures helped the old man, and he would listen to them, to the things their parents had told them, and the things that had happened in their lives. Then the man would write with a stick the things they told him. He was the first storyteller. The ground was soft, and he wondered if this was true of the whole property. Had he lucked up with this single plot, or had the entire expanse been churned over so many times the soil was aerated and willing? It welcomed the cutting blade of his shovel like the horizon welcomes the sun's emergence on a winter morning. The gravestones, unmoved since their staking, spoke nothing. Etched with letters and words and numbers and even images, they rested mute. They did not welcome nor rebuke him. But the soil, with its dewy feathers of grass, whispered and sighed and perhaps giggled, he thought. They wanted him there. He should have arrived deeper in the dark of night, but realized too late that that type of cavernous darkness both protected and lied. With no full moon to guide him, the boy needed a little dawn, a pink glow, just enough to wake the birds and light his path. He knew the stone straight away, even though it stood farthest from the entry gate. He had memorized its curves and angles and edges the day after reading the announcement in the newspaper. The same day he walked the grounds, consumed with spite and acid washing over his tongue. He had run his fingers over the cold granite, tracing a memory not his own. He had stared at it for some time, not yet realizing that it had nothing to say, that it was the earth under his feet that wanted to talk. And now they were finally in conversation. Give, take, a communal motion of rise and fall, lift and turn, until the mounds flanked him as if a combat foxhole. He had dug a trench in this solo fight, but the fight was not outside the earthen walls. It lay before him in the trench itself. This deep, the earth smelled of a wet age, a place where all the perfumes of life melded into one another until each lost its distinction, until each was subdued into a collective thick odor of morning breath. Tolerable on oneself, repellent outside oneself. It was enough that he paused, considered the clearing skies above him. For a moment, only a brief moment, he wished for a weightlessness to carry him upward. He wished his damp, muddied clothes to be dried and no longer heavy. He wished his face clean and his hands soft. He wished to rise out of this trench and leave it behind. But that was a job half done. The dirt gave way to a solidity that made him want to rest, want to raise his hands to all those who should be watching, but he knew there was none to see. He had no one to invite to this triumph, this statement of reclamation. He also had no one else to help him from this hole, to raise the coffin, crack it open, and curse with delight at the justice. No one to say, thank you. And while the realization washed over him that he could not, in fact, ever manage the casket open in this position, nor raise it, the reality that he had no way out of the hole he had quite literally dug himself into sank in his gut. A rain of regret washed over him, staking his soiled body to the pit. And so he cursed the body beneath him. He cursed her for raising a son in the way she had. He cursed her for taking space in this earth that did not belong to her anyway, but that she had interred with her own body and marked occupied with a garish stone. Or rather, that her loved ones had done so on her behalf. And those curses transcended her capacity for blame, so he let it rise and spread to the man that was truly the intended audience of the day. He cursed the man, the professor, the archaeologist, thief, for his arrogance and greed and blasphemy of the sacred. He hoped that man would come to visit his mother, find him prostrate across her resting place, and be pulled in beside so that he might feel, if not the sensation of being raised from the dead, but the opposite, the experience of being pulled into the darkening lands. And sure, he was not the first archaeologist to dig, to wrench, to display indigenous bodies behind glass, to measure their skulls like a trophy trout, to label them with tiny white placards and scientific terms. But the obituary of his mother, a proud, sentimental statement of not just her life's collective accomplishments, but rather a focus on the one that mattered most to the author, the raising of her son and those 3 letters that surely she spoke in a death rattle, PhD. And now the good doctor's mother would know nothing of her son's work intimately. And now the good doctor's mother would know her son's work intimately. Perhaps her son would understand his own work more intimately. If only there was a way to, and that's where the chapter ends there. So this one starts off a little more lighthearted, and then I just lead you into less lighthearted. But this is this is not the beginning of a chapter. It's just a piece later on. Maisie has gone to Asheville to take a workshop, a farm-to-table workshop. If you've ever been to Asheville, you might appreciate this more. I hope not to offend anyone. Okay. All right. I mean, it's fiction, right? Okay. All right. The gravel parking lot was nearly full when she pulled in close to the newly constructed split rail fencing. Lanky men in trucker hats and skinny jeans gathered around bike racks and laughed as if they knew each other from the last 15 of these they had attended. Women carried themselves more aloof, giving Maisie only side glances and ignoring the men altogether. Their long, flowing skirts grazed the gravel dust as if they were floating on gray clouds. Maisie climbed down from her truck, grabbed her notebook and pen, and stuffed it into her oversized canvas pocketbook. No one looked familiar, which was to be expected. But they also didn't look familiar in the way locals look familiar, even if you have never met them. They were clinically Asheville. Diagnosable cases of trust fund drainers and wokefulness spoken loudly, acted upon rarely. It was as if they had discovered the city sometime in their very early 20s, like they really discovered it. Maybe rescued it from the locals. Saved its integrity by infusing it with an organic concoction of essential oils, gluten-free yoga, and pseudo-Appalachian Dada installations in public parks. Well, I do believe you look a little too local for this shop local crowd, a large woman in worn, loose-fitting jeans and a soft blue plaid shirt grinned at Maisie as she walked through the door of the conference room. You most certainly are from around here, huh? What's your name? Maisie held out her hand. I'm Maisie Taith. Lucille, nice to meet you. I assume you are here for this workshop? Yes, are you? Something about Lucille's smile comforted Maisie, allowing her to drop her guard a bit and stop looking at her own feet. I guess I'm teaching it. At least they're paying me to. Lucille laughed and slung her City Lights bookstore satchel on a nearby table. Sorry, red-spotted newt. I went a little local, okay. Oh, I didn't realize, Maisie blushed. What, that my fat ass was a cook? You aren't very observant, are you? Lucille laughed and took Maisie's elbow. Anyway, saw you in the parking lot and wanted to get to you before the others do, before they start their hippie hazing bullshit. Maisie looked around the room. I thought hippies were peaceful. Only the real ones. These are the artificially flavored type. The sweet and low of humans, minus the sweet, of course. I thought I was just here for a workshop on starting an organic restaurant. Did I accidentally walk into a sorority? Kind of. Listen, I'm glad you're here. I like to see real local folk. I don't mean to make assumptions, and I wouldn't normally. It's just that you look like a friend of mine from over Cherokee a bit, and I just assumed. Lucille cocked her head to try to get a better read on Maisie's reaction. Maisie was glad Lucille had recognized her as local. It was a source of pride, in fact. Yes, don't worry about it. I'm from Cherokee. Then you have two things to worry about now. The hate